Welcome to the Patriots Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Sarianides. And as always, I'm joined by one of my many partners, Kevin Stone, who, of course, joins me every Monday night on the New England Football Show. And occasionally he'll join us on the Patriots post-game show. But Kevin is with me tonight. And, of course, the Patriots coming off a tough finish to the preseason, a 20-10 loss to the Washington Commanders tonight down in Maryland. And Kevin, I said to you before we went live that I felt that there's really only three stories that you could talk about in terms of this game because the game sucked. Let's start there. The game was awful. It was worse than me having COVID this weekend and not being able to do anything. But the game was bad, and we knew it was going to be bad because preseason football is bad. They talked about that on the broadcast tonight. I think we need to extend the regular season, junk the third preseason game, and eventually I think all you really need to do is join practices and maybe you play one game and rotate home and away every other year because these games are not worth playing or watching at this point. But I digress. In any event, really three key storylines tonight. The performance of Drake May, which we're going to get into here in a sec, the offensive line and how asinine and abysmal they were tonight. And then you just told me something that I thought was really telling. And I want to dive into that. We're not going to start with that, but I kind of want to piggyback the May conversation with this. Jerron Mayo just told the assembled media down there that Drake May's the second best quarterback on the roster. I don't even know where to begin to go with this anymore. I think that this whole situation is a total debacle, to quote Carmine Lupertazzi. If you're a Sopranos fan, he couldn't say debacle. Total debacle. I think the way they're handling this thing is ridiculous. And I love the fact that the last 2 weeks, the kid has made it really hard on them. Drake May comes out in the second series tonight. Jacoby Brissett gets the start, gets dinged up. May comes out first series, leads him on an 11-play, 88-yard drive, throws an 18-yard touchdown pass to running back Kevin Harris, finishes 13 of 20 for 143 yards and a passer rating of 99.2. So I'm going to start with this, Stone. Is he their starting quarterback 2 weeks from today in Cincinnati?
I hope so, but I don't think so. Look, they keep talking about the plan, and unless Jacoby Brissett is actually hurt, and I want to get into that a little bit more too, because I found it odd that they put it out when they did.
So did I.
Okay. Look,
not to cut you off, because I think you and I are thinking the same thing here.
Hmm?
Go ahead. I'm going to let you finish, and I'll come back to this because I think we're thinking the same thing.
Yeah, no, it was strange, but should he be? Yes, at this point. But you can make the argument, and people have for weeks now, that you're going to get him killed. And look, I get it, but he's the most athletic. He has the bigger arm, and he gives you the best chance to win a game. And at some point, you owe the guys in the locker room to play him. I just don't think. Look, Jacoby was fine in training camp. We were there for just about all of it. I thought he was maybe better than everybody thought, but he's regressed the last few weeks, and Drake looks like a starting quarterback right now. And is he going to be perfect? No, but he gives you the best chance to win a game right now. Some of the stuff that he did tonight with crap all around him, at his feet, in his face, stepping up, losing a freaking shoe mid-stride, and still making a play. I don't know how you can look at the two quarterbacks and say he's not the best QB that you have right now.
Yeah, I don't think this was ever their plan. Obviously, it's not breaking news what I'm telling you here. I think that he's thrown a wrench into their plan. And I'll be honest with you. I think some of the inexperience, both in terms of Mayo and to a degree their staff, is kind of showing up here a little bit. And what I mean by that is they don't know how to handle this right now. Now, luckily for them, they have 2 weeks to figure this out. But as of now, if you're just solely basing your decision on the last 2 weeks, if let's say you're someone who hasn't been around this team in the past year, you're just reintroduced to the team the last 2 weeks. If you're basing it solely on that, it's abundantly obvious. Drake May's better than Jacoby Brissett, okay? However, they're in a pickle now because their plan all along You bring in Brissett, you pay him $8 million. He's the stopgap guy. He's the bridge guy. He gets you to 2025. They've known all along they're not going to be very good. They know that. They've known it for a long time. Okay. All of that being said, now all of a sudden this kid comes out in the last 2 weeks. He has progressed a ton. And all of a sudden, he's starting to look like he's ahead of schedule and that you could potentially play him a lot sooner than you thought. Now, the question is, has his timeline been sped up so much that you can play him in week 1? Look, based on performance, yes, I would start him over Jacoby Brissett. In reality, I don't think you could start him against Cincinnati in 2 weeks. I just don't. And the reason I say that is, and you kind of alluded to this as well, do you want to see him get killed? This offensive line is a debacle. They're a train wreck, okay? They're a train wreck, and we've spent all summer hearing about Scott Peters and his strike system and all this wax on, wax off bullshit. And at the end of the day, they were pathetic tonight. And you can sit here and I don't want to hear, well, they've been repping Vidarian Lowe at left tackle all of camp, and he was hurt and they didn't have him. No offense to Vidarian Lowe. Nice guy, competes, works hard. But if you're hinging the success of your offensive line on Vidarian Lowe, don't even bother getting on the bus to go down to Providence in 2 weeks, and don't even think about getting on the plane to fly out to play Cincinnati. If your success hinges on Vidarian Lowe at left tackle, and again, it's not a knock on Lowe, it's reality, okay? Whether Vidarian Lowe plays or not, that's not a good offensive line. We know that. But all we heard all summer was how much better they were going to be because of Scott Peters and his strike system and their better coach and all this other stuff. And now all of a sudden, tonight, at the very least, they resorted back to a lot of the hideous play that we've seen for them the last 3 years. All that being said, for me, that's the number one reason you don't play the kid right out of the gate. I just don't think they can protect him. And they'll tell you otherwise, as they should. And I do think that once you get into the regular season, they will emphasize running the football more. They'll emphasize play action. They won't put as much on his plate. They'll make things a little easier for this offensive line. But look, even if Vidarian Lowe is back and healthy, Kevin, you and I both know they're going to struggle up front. And so the question you have to ask yourself organizationally is, excuse me, do we think that we're good enough up front? Do we think we're good enough schematically to play this kid out of the gate and have some success and not hinder his development? The answer to that question for me is no. You're going to hinder his development. It's not so much about Drake not being ready to play. I don't think that they could support him enough right now for him to be successful.
Not only that, I think you had 16 penalties tonight, maybe 10 on offense, and 3 of them, real quick, bad night for Elliott Wolf because his boy Okorafor was terrible. But now, you have Mayo after the game, and look, he said, I need to be more diligent. I need to be on these guys more. That's some Jeff Hafley PC type stuff tonight. Just completely undisciplined and repeating the same mistakes. Like, that's the worst part about it is forget the scheme. You can't even line up right now. And so, look, I get it. You can't play him. Probably can't play him being May week 1 because of that O-line. But on the flip side, let me ask you this. Does David Andrews just being out there and sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of just controlling things. Does that help at all? Or is it just a complete shit show?
It's huge. Not having him out there tonight, they were obviously missing him. I mean, Nick Leverett struggled with snaps. He got folded a bunch of times one-on-one in pass pro. David Andrews is their most important offensive player. I'm not kidding when I say that. He really is. I mean, he's not just their pivot in the middle. He's not just their center, but he is the leader of this football team. He is the leader of this offense. Not having him in the middle is huge. But taking a step back for a sec, it does, and this isn't, I'm not discounting what David means to this team because we all know how important David is, but you're still going to have a ton of problems at tackle. Okorafor cannot play on the left side. He couldn't do it in Pittsburgh. That's why Pittsburgh didn't want to bring him back. He's proven he can't do it here. Vidarian Lowe can only play left tackle against certain types of guys. You don't have a left tackle. Caden Wallace, They've repped him some there, but not enough where you could plug him in and play him. So they have a real problem on their hands with left tackle. And again, part of the reason why he was lining up off sides is because he's trying to get into a jump set against a speed guy. And so he thinks if I cheat a little, I'll look inside. If my helmet aligns to my nearest lineman's belt, I should be okay. The fact it has to align ear hold to belt. If it doesn't, you're off sides. And so I think he was trying to get a little sneaky there and trying to gain a step, and he got busted 3 times or however many times it was. So I think for me, look, it was a bad night all around for the Patriots. The undisciplined stuff, it would keep me up tonight, probably the next few nights if I were Gerard Mayo. That's on you ultimately. When your team racks up 16 penalties, I've been a head coach. I don't care if it was at the high school level. I've done it. A head coach is a head coach. You've had to run a program, okay? When your team accumulates 16 penalties, that's the shit that keeps you up at night. That's the stuff that makes you want to puke in the parking lot as you're getting into your car. That's the stuff that gives you graze. So that really would bother me if I were him tonight. But I think the other piece here is they have a real decision to make here. And I don't know which way this is going to go, Kevin. I'd love to think that as long as Brissett is healthy, they're going to play him. But I'm not sure that's the case. And I'll take it a step further. If they internally make the decision to play May in week 1, they've got the perfect built-in excuse now. Brissett's hurt. Mm-hmm. He's our backup. He would have been our number 2 anyway. Jacoby can't go. They might shelve him for 6 weeks, and now it's Drake May's job, and we're going to ride and die with the kid. So, I mean, this could go in a lot of different ways. I don't want to go conspiracy theorist here on you, but they kind of have a built-in excuse here if Brissett is really hurt. I'm not saying he's not hurt. But let's say he really is hurt beyond what we know. They kind of have a built-in excuse now.
No, this goes back to what we both brought up a few minutes ago. Why put that out there in the second quarter when pregame Mayo had said he was only playing a series anyways? So now I think they have to report every injury.
They do. They are obligated to report all injuries and the player's status.
But even still, you're right. This now it leaves the door wide open. And now at postgame, Mayo said, Jacoby could have continued. You can say that now, fine. And who knows, maybe he is fine. But you're right, it's a built-in excuse now. If anybody asks, what happened to, quote-unquote, the plan, this is the way you expedite it now. Jacoby couldn't go. We had to get the kid ready. It's built in for them to use it, which is kind of nice. I don't know if they will. Look, I still feel like they're going to go with Brissett just because it was the plan and they don't want to have egg on their face. But they do now, no matter what, because the kids made him look, I don't want to say made him look stupid, but how can you look at this and not, the fact they called him the second best quarterback tonight is mind boggling because it's just not truthful. But you're right. We were on the same page with the injury thing. I found it strange that they put it out there, not thinking they had to. But either way, man, it leaves the door wide ass open now for them to go with him and still say, well, we had the plan, but, things kind of changed.
And as always, feel free to join the conversation. We know you have a lot of post-game options out there, and they're all great options, but give us a listen as well. And one thing I will tell you is we will give you a platform to voice your opinion. Feel free to jump on the chat feature and share your opinions with us. We'll read it live here on the stream. You can catch the show live on our Facebook page, our Twitch page, our X page, and also our YouTube channel. You are watching the Patriots Pulse postgame show. I'm your host, John Saranides, joined by Kevin Stone. The Commanders beat the Patriots in tonight's preseason finale 20-10. No, I'm with you. I don't understand why he would say what he said about him being the second best quarterback on the roster. They talked about this during the game, about his candor and how honest he is. Listen, man, look, you covered me when I was a head coach. I could say 500 stupid-ass things to you, and the people in Norwood might know what I said, and maybe a couple of surrounding communities, but that was about it, okay? When you're the head football coach of the New England Patriots, people in the media and fans alike, they hang on every single one of your words. So when you go out and you say something like this, I got to tell you, man, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like that he said that. I don't know what the question was, so I don't want to be critical of him from that standpoint. But this idea that he's the second best quarterback in on the roster, what are we talking about here? You're pissing in my ear and telling me it's raining. Like, come on
And
now. Let's.
it was in response to, I believe, a Phil Perry question. Obviously, we're not down there, but he asked him, I think if Jacoby couldn't go, would Drake May be the starter? And Mayo was non-committal. Then he made that comment. So I think they're sort of talking in circles at this point, and it might be cover your own ass mode at this point because again, it's their plan is now blowing up in their face, and they don't know how to deal with it, like you said earlier.
And where I disagree with you is it's not that the plan is blowing up in their face. I also get what you're trying to say. I think they've mismanaged the presentation of the plan now. And to take May out of the equation for a second and the way he's playing, what I would have done if I were them is, regardless of what Drake May does, Jacoby Brissett is going to start the season as our starting quarterback. There is nothing that Drake May can do this summer to unseat him as the starter. Barring injury, he is our starting quarterback. Done. End of story. And yes, reporters are going to do their job and they're going to ask after these two performances, geez, does this open the door for Drake to possibly be the starter? And that's at that point where you draw a hard line. And that's where you tap into your inner Bill Belichick and say, nope, Jacoby's our starter. Next. Jacoby's our starter. Not Jacoby's our starter. That's when you have to you can be transparent and honest with the media, but when you're dithering like this and going back and forth, it's a bad look, man. And the thing is, Kevin, this has been the universal message. Okay? Going back to all of Mayo's press conferences, Wolf's press conference last week, Van Pelt's earlier this week, it's kind of been the same message. Although Van Pelt, interestingly enough, basically came out and said, no, Brissett is our guy. And when Drake's ready to play, he'll play. So he kind of threw some cold water on this being a quarterback competition. But then Mayo, meeting with the Sunday Night Football crew last night, doubles down and says, no, it is a quarterback competition. So, look, I talked about this with Joe Murray the other night. They got to get their ducks in a row here. They got to get on the same page. The message has to be the same. You can't have four different people saying four different things.
And the other thing too about the whole second best quarterback on the roster, and look, you'll give me some crap for this. I feel like you can make the argument that right now it's May, Milton, and then Jacoby. And look, I know Milton has a long way to go, but you saw some of the physical stuff tonight where he can, be elusive in the pocket and make throws on the run. And again, I know he's not even close to being a starter in the NFL, but in terms of the statement by Mayo, it's just so untruthful. It really is.
But the way you're I think if you say it's Joe Milton, then that's not the question. The question is, who's the second most gifted quarterback on the team?
Yeah,
something
fair.
along those lines. I mean, I'm not playing Joe Milton over Jacoby Brissett
No,
now.
I'm not saying
Joe
that.
Milton's not ready to play.
No,
So
you put
with that being
better
the
than I did.
case, I don't think he's the second best quarterback on the team. All that being said, yes, he's more physically gifted than Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah,
I think that's obvious. Look, they're in a real bind. The other thing to keep in mind here is that if Brissett is in fact hurt, what does this mean for Bailey Zappi now? They played him the last 2 minutes of the game tonight in
2
garbage
minutes and 58 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you can tell by his expressions and his body language. I'll say this about Bailey Zappi: he deserves better. I think he deserves better. I think he's been a consummate pro. People forget that this guy's gone 4-4 as a starter the last 2 years. That's kind of what you want out of your backup if they have to play. The whole job of the backup is to keep you competitive, keep you in games, and keep your head above water until the starter comes back. And I think Bailey Zappi has done a good job given the circumstances here in New England. And I think the way that he's kind of been tossed aside here now, I think it's unfair to the kid. And I think he deserves a shot to play somewhere where he can be a legitimate backup and have a chance to get some snaps. And I wouldn't, I'd try to find a way to keep him. My guess is they're going to probably cut him either tomorrow or Tuesday morning. And I don't see what happened last year happening this time. I think he's going to have some genuine interest out there. And I don't think he's going to let them off the hook by re-signing here. I just don't see it.
No,
I think he's done with it here.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say I don't think you get what you got last year where he was willing to come back. Plain and simple, they've treated him like absolute shit this entire training camp. Barely getting reps in practice. He might get he got some scout team reps, this week, which I get, but playing him for the last 3 minutes of the game tonight, at that point, if I'm him, I don't even want to go in. Just keep Joe Milton in the game at that point. It's sort of embarrassing. So, no, I don't think if they do cut him, he'll be signing back here. And you're right. He was always great. Even when he's talking to the media, jokingly, when he walked to the podium the other day, he said, "No, Drake's going to be over there, guys," kind of pointing to the other podium. So he's had a good head on his shoulders, and he's gone about his business the right way. But yeah, no, I feel bad because he's been treated very poorly by the coaching staff this entire training camp.
I think the other thing to keep in mind here is the Mac Jones effect. They are so scared to accelerate Drake May's timeline because they're afraid that he's going to end up effed up again like Mac Jones was. And I'm sure there's a mandate from the Crafts that we have to make him a franchise quarterback. We will give you what you need. We want you to take a quarterback. He has to be the guy. And I think that they're handling him with forget about kid gloves. I mean, they're practically using catcher's mitts to handle him at this point.
I was going to say mittens.
Right. And I think for me, I think that this is a big part of it, Kevin, is I think this is the Mac Jones effect. I think that they're looking back on his 3 years here, and they don't want to screw this kid up. They are so afraid to accelerate his timeline because somehow in their minds, they think that if we push him to play too fast or too soon, that he'll end up like Mac, which I think is silly because people forget Mac was an offensive rookie of the year candidate, and I believe he was the offensive rookie of the year, if I'm not mistaken, in 2021.
I don't remember, but he was a Pro Bowler nonetheless.
He was a Pro Bowler nonetheless, and at the end of the day, threw 23 touchdown passes, 3,800 yards, had a Pro Bowl season under Josh McDaniels, and then McDaniels leaves to go to Vegas. Belichick botches the whole offensive staff situation, ends up setting him back, and then he brings in O'Brien, and then O'Brien does the best he can with that situation, but he wouldn't allow O'Brien to hire his own offensive assistants, and that created friction between him and the offensive coaches in Belichick. There was no way on earth Mac was going to succeed. And then Mac gets traded to Jacksonville for a 6th-round pick, and lo and behold, he might have had the best preseason of any quarterback. He was fantastic this preseason for Jacksonville. So it makes you wonder, was it Mac, or was it that this was just such a bad and toxic situation that there was no way any quarterback was going to succeed here, let alone Mac? Word to the wise for the Patriots, I would not be basing any decisions on what I do with Drake May based on what happened with Mac Jones. First of all, I think Drake May is a better player.
Yeah.
He has higher upside, a higher ceiling. Mac didn't have much of a ceiling. He might have had more of a floor, but Drake has a much higher ceiling. But the other thing is, if you're in a situation where you have to play the kid, play the kid. You can't worry about him turning into Mac 2.0. I think if you let him be him, he's good. I don't think that's going to happen.
So there's enough veterans in that locker room who I could see would back Jacoby, but at some point, whether you thought you were going to be good this year or not, and you've said this a lot of times throughout camp, these are professional athletes, grown-ass men. They're going to want to win games. And at some point, they're going to see who's better. Do you think they can ultimately – how quickly can he win the locker room over? I guess is my question. if he hasn't already.
Who, Drake?
Yeah,
It's not going to take long. I
right.
think if he's going out there making plays, taking care of the ball, becoming a leader, guys are going to rally around him, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But then I think he's going to captivate the entire team. And whether they're winning or losing,
Hmm.
it's not really going to be the deciding factor. It's going to be his effort. And if he's giving max effort, I don't think it's going to take very long.
Right. I mean, look at the locker room last year. You had Bailey guys and Matt guys because Bailey was making plays. So there's a few plays tonight that you can't deny. The scramble on third down out of his own end for 17 yards just took off right away. The throw to Polk for 29 yards, stepped up, moved around, dart. The touchdown that got called back, rolling to his left and a seed down the sideline to Osborne, like Matt couldn't make those throws or
No.
those plays, and I
No,
don't think Jacoby can either.
and I think the other thing that's important to point out here is I think what this preseason has proven is that 2021 class was nowhere near as good as we thought. And looking back on that group, shame on us, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody. Shame on us for buying the hype with that class. Because outside of Trevor Lawrence, none of those guys, Mac was a one-year starter at Alabama. Trey Lance played at North Dakota State, which plays a high level of FCS football, but he never faced big-time competition. He had a limited number of starts. Zach Wilson was really a year and a half wonder. I mean, shame on us. Justin Fields had a good college career at Ohio State, but I might give you him. But outside of him and Trevor Lawrence, shame on us for thinking that 2021 class was going to be this next great quarterback class. This group, and I may didn't start that many games in North Carolina, but when you look at this group, Caleb Williams played a lot of football in college. Jaden Daniels played a lot of football. J.J. McCarthy played a lot of football. Bo Nix played a ton of football. I mean, these guys, Michael Penix played a ton of football. May's the only guy that didn't play a lot, and in theory would probably fit in more with that 21 class than this 24 class. But this was the class. And that's why early on you're seeing that the league may end up getting 6 stars out of this class potentially at the quarterback position. It'll be comparable to 2020. So, I think, again, and I say it all the time, playing time matters. Resumes matter, especially at the quarterback position. And while Drake may not have the resume that some of his peers in this class have, I mean, he played enough over 2 years, and talent-wise, he's as good as any of them. He's as good as Caleb Williams. You saw that tonight. He's as good as Jaden Daniels. He's right there with them. There's no physical difference, really, between those 3 guys. I mean, they're very similar. So, for me, again, it'll be interesting to see how they handle this, but they've got to spin this the right way this week, because right now, I don't think it's been handled the right way.
No, and you've been on this for weeks, or if not a couple months, about Mayo, wanting to be that player's guy, but he's now talking himself into some crap that he's going to have to get out of.
Well, and all of a sudden now, he's telling people he doesn't want to be a player's coach. He wants to be a good coach. Yeah, that's got to be your
Right.
goal. Listen, you can be a player's coach, but the difference between being a player's coach and a great coach is it's all about winning. And when you're a head coach, you got to make tough decisions, whether it be in regards to your staff, whether it be in regards to your players, okay, in regards to who stays and who goes. You've got to make tough decisions. There's no such thing as being a player's coach, okay? Bill Walsh, Vince Lombardi, okay? You name it. I mean, any great coach, Belichick, right? Any of these guys, what is the common thread among them? Chuck Noll, what is the common thread? They were all pricks.
I mean, Bill
everybody
Parcells,
looks at
our guy.
Parcells. Right.
Yeah.
They were all pricks. And when you became their guy, you became their guy because you knew, I'm going to win. Yes, they toe a hard line. Yes, it's a disciplined program. Yes, the expectations are high. Yes, it's cutthroat. But guess what? We're going to win. And that was the common thread that bound all those guys. You look at Bill Walsh, the frosty white hair and, the hands under the chin thinking about the next play he wants to call. Bill Walsh was a prick, okay? Any of those guys that played on those 49ers of the 80s would tell you that. So at the end of the day, when you think of all of the great coaches of our lifetime or even before them, that was the common thread. They were hard asses. And there's no such thing as a player's coach. As Bill Parcells once said, okay, if you listen to fans, you're going to be sitting next to them. Well, if you're a player's coach and everybody loves you because you're a cool dude, but you're not winning football games, you're not going to last very long. You're not going to last. And listen, I've always said this. My head coaching career was only 4 years. And I've always said this. Anybody that's asked me my advice about being a head coach, I always tell them the same thing. Do it your way. Do it your way. The minute you have to start doing it someone else's way, give it up. Move on and go on to something else. Either get out of the profession, go back to being a coordinator or an assistant, and then try again down the road, but get out of there. Because the minute they don't let you do it your way, you can't win. So he's got to do it his way. And if players don't like that and it's going to ruffle some feathers, oh, well, you're not going to win with those guys anyway, so get them out of here.
Yeah, no, there's only 2 or 3 that come to mind. Pete Carroll, Andy Reid, and Bill Cowher comes to mind too. But I feel like Cowher was kind of a prick.
Cowher was a prick.
Yeah, but Andy Reid and
but
Pete
those
Carroll,
guys are hard too now. Don't
yeah.
I know they come across as these affable, lovable guys in the eyes of the media. Trust me, I have friends with the Chiefs. Andy Reid's, Big Red everybody loves Big Red until Big Red barks. And then when Big Red barks, everybody listens. Andy's not some, lovable teddy bear. Trust me, I have a very good friend of mine that works in the organization, and I know a ton of stories about Andy Reid. So, no, Mike Holmgren was the same way in Green Bay, and he's a Mike Holmgren disciple. I mean, he ran a tight ship too. So we all knew it's his first year. He's never been a coordinator in theory. I mean, I know that he and Steve Belichick ran the defense together with Bill's guidance, but this is his team now, and there's going to be growing pains this year, and that's okay. We knew that going in. We knew that there were going to be some bumps in the road, but this is his chance now. Carpe diem, right? Seize the day. Put your imprint on this program. It's your team. Make it your team. You're not here to be their friend. It's the NFL. It's a business. If he don't win, he won't be around very long. So at the end of the day, you know what? Hopefully this is a turning point for him in the organization. Final thoughts?
Tough to take anything away defensively. I thought they were okay, but just between who was on the field and who Washington had out there, I think it's really tough to kind of take anything away except Azizi Hearn. That's a tough look, man. At the end of the game,
yeah, it's not going to help his chances.
No, kicker battle. It's got to be Joey Sly, right? Yeah. I know he missed a
pretty sly for a white guy. I think he's probably the guy.
It's not bad. Other than that, tough to take anything else away. And I think we all know what we'll be talking about for 2 straight weeks now. And it's good timing for them, at least, that, we're not at practice anymore for the full practices. So I'd love to be a fly on the wall and see what those discussions and those practices are like. But I think we all know, ultimately, I think it's going to be Brissett at least week 1. But again, there is now that door open where you can use the excuse, hey, he's banged up. We're going to get the kid ready. So I didn't think it'd be this entertaining, the last night of preseason, but we got plenty of stuff that came out of it.
Yeah, I'm non-committal on what they're going to do at quarterback. The reason I'm non-committal is I could very easily see them saying that he's got to go on PUP or that he's going to be out for 6 weeks. Drake's your guy, and then insert Wally Pipp. It's over. It's Drake May's team. So we'll see. I mean, it's not going to be Bledsoe Brady 2.0, but I mean, obviously, a lot of this hinges on Brissett and this shoulder injury and whether or not it's serious. If it is, yeah, it could open the door for the kid to play because let's face it, they're going to probably move on from Zampi and they're not going to start Joe Milton. So it's probably Drake May who's the next man up. My final thought is the offensive line. They got to get this figured out. They got to get it figured out. And listen, I'm going to say it now. Okay, it's what, August 25th. I'm going to say it now, okay? In my opinion, in next year's draft, if I were them, I would use my first 2 days worth of picks. I would just draft offensive linemen. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding when I say that. They need to reimagine this offensive line. It is, and it starts at tackle. I take 2 tackles with my first 2 picks, and then I go from there. I mean, for me, I don't think you could fix it that easily. That's the thing. I've been an offensive line coach at the collegiate level, at the high school level. It's not that easy to fix. You play with what's in the room. And at the end of the day, you can only squeeze so much juice out of that lemon. There's not that much juice there. The lemon's pretty dry. So I think the offensive line is a major issue. And as I said at the start of the show, we spent all summer talking about strike systems and the players saying, oh, Scott Peters and Bill Callahan's strike system has helped me. Well, it hasn't, because I watched 5 guys tonight get folded like lawn chairs in pass pro. So I think at the end of the day, I'm good with watching their offensive line get bundied every other play, to use a lacrosse term. I mean, I just think it needs to be a priority next offseason, either in free agency or the draft. They're not good enough up front. And this isn't a knock on those guys. They work hard. They practice hard. But we have somehow, in the media around here, talked ourselves into Vadarian Lowe could be their left tackle. Serviceable swing tackle at best. He's not an elite level starting caliber left tackle in this league. That's what you need if you want to properly develop a young quarterback. They don't have it right now. That needs to be a priority. I'm a big Elliott Wolf fan. I really am. But at the end of the day, that should have been more of a priority this offseason, because it starts and ends there.
Real quick before we go, should they have taken Joe Alt?
No, you take Drake May.
I'm just asking.
Take Drake, right. You take Drake May. No, they needed to take a quarterback. That's still the most important position in football. Second most important, left tackle. And if you don't have one of those, you don't have a chance. Look, it's easier said than done, but with the amount of cap space they had, and I'm sure they tried. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know more than them. I'm sure they tried. But, and they know what I'm saying, they already know. I'm telling them what they already know. But at the end of the day, if you don't fix this offensive line, you're going to F this kid up too. He has no chance. And at the end of the day, great teams are built up front. End of story. That's how you win. You win and lose games in the trenches. It's not hyperbole. It's not cliche. It's reality, okay? Whenever I've been on good football teams that have won games, we've kicked people's ass up front. And that's what you need to do to win. You need to be able to kick people's ass, but you need to be able to protect your most important asset, which is your quarterback, and they can't do that right now. So, listen, if they had a suitable offensive line, I think that this quarterback conversation is settled. I think it's Drake May week 1. I really do.
Yeah,
I think them not having a suitable offensive line is going to be the biggest reason they're going to opt to play Brissett. So basically, Brissett's going to get $8 million this season to get his ass kicked, unfortunately. And I like Jacoby. And I think he deserves to be in the league, and I think he deserves to have one more shot to start. But at the end of the day, I don't think you can put Drake May behind that group week 1 against Cincinnati. Preseason's over. Vanilla fronts and coverages are over now. Lou Anarumo, I know Coach Anarumo. He's going to throw a shit ton at them in week 1. And if you're starting a rookie quarterback against that Cincinnati defense, against a coordinator like that, it's not going to look pretty. All right, we need to go because I'm sweating like King Kong Bundy at a Golden Corral. So, all right, well, that'll do it for this episode of the Patriots Pulse postgame show. I want to thank my partner, Kevin Stone, for taking the time to join me tonight to stay up past midnight to talk about this debacle in D.C. Again, Patriots and the preseason 1-2 with a 20-10 loss to the Washington Commanders. We'll be back with you in a couple weeks after the Cincinnati Bengals season opener. For Kevin, I'm John Sirenitas. Make sure you join us tomorrow night for the New England Football Show. Until then,